Üks. Welcome everybody. It's just we have a few minutes more and the stars will be arriving. So just a few minutes and then we will begin. So, yeah, take a seat. Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's great to welcome you to the Great Futurological Congress. We are now going to witness the second discussion of the Congress and also the last one of today. Just an hour before, we had a possibility to hear the thoughts and ideas and the world of Tõnis Vilu. So if somebody missed it, it's still possible to rewatch it through the internet. But right now, it's great pleasure to introduce Halõna Krukiga and Maarja Kangro. And yeah, without further ado, I will give the word and the stage to you.
Okay, hello everybody, tere õhtust. It's a real privilege to welcome here on stage one of the finest poets in Ukraine today, maybe one of the finest poets in Europe, Halõna Krukiga. Halõna is the author of 5 poetry collections, 1 collection of short stories, 4 children's books, and her collection of poems in English, or it's a bilingual edition titled A Crash Course in Molotov Cocktails, was nominated for the Griffin Prize. And Halõna is among the 5 authors who were shortlisted. So she is already almost a laureate of this prize. Halõna is a professor of Ukrainian literature at the Ivan Franko University in Lviv, focusing on the Baroque period in Ukrainian literature. So let's give her a warm welcoming applause. And before our conversation, we will read you some poems, both in Ukrainian and in my Estonian translation. We will start with a rather long poem, which has been written from the viewpoint of future, as we are now at the Futurological Congress. So Halõna will start with the poem in Ukrainian.
I am very glad to be here with you. It's my first time in Estonia. It's very strange, but it's my first time. Previous time had to have in my 10 years age, but it was not successful. It was school journey to Baltic Republic in that time. But now it's said that that my last poems from 2 last years are about the war. It's sad, and it's not a good. War is a good topic for. Not topic, but it's a very deep material for art, for literature. But it's not a material if this war is in your country, with people you know, with your family. And this first poem is from, it was the last poem of the first year of full-scale invasion. It was about the life in wartime in Lviv. A bifurcation point, the title is. У Львові часів війни, потім напишуть вони, було потужне літературне середовище. Напевно, вони щось видавали гуртом, як колись там Метуса, або збиралися на літературні читання, бо що ще робити під час війни поетам. Стільки їх тут опинилося нараз, внутрішньо переміщених і зовнішньо нестабільних, як колись ненадовго у першу і другу проїздом у Європу, перш ніж залізна завіса розітне похитливе оголене тіло модерного світу. Так, по-живому. Хоч тоді більше йшлося про Прагу і Подебради, Варшаву і Мюнхен, але й цього разу теж говоритимуть про Варшаву та Львів, Чернівці та Ужгород, Івано-Франківськ і Тернопіль. Де стільки було їх нараз, тих поетів, що, здавалось, на кожному кроці можна було втрапити одне до одного в вірш, в тривожні сни, в історію, в новини, на одну підлогу зі спільним матрацом, під одну перехідну клаптикову ковдру. Яка точна метафора людського співіснування часів війни, але, на жаль, вже зужита. В одну родину, надщерблену і неповну. І поясни комусь потім, що перші дні ми перетиналися лише випадково, винятково по справах, на кілька хвилин, часом на вулиці, не відразу впізнавшись, сахаючись, ніби згадавши про щось безповоротно втрачене і більше недоступне, обіймаючись замість слів, щоб сховати набіглі сльози. Як ти? Як ти? Ні слова про літературу. Як? Тримайся? Тримайся? Мовчазні й зосереджені, як перші християни, що побачили чуда Христові на власні очі і ще не знають, як їх розуміти і як їх розказати іншим, щоб ті повірили і не кпили. Як нічого не перекрутити і не наплутати, бо ніколи не ясно, які деталі найважливіші, якими можна знехтувати. В кожній розповіді потім ми розходилися із тим, що з нами сталося, як апостоли в різні кінці світу, проповідуючи кожен свою версію Євангелія. Бо всяка віра тримається на мільйонах особистих свідчень, на безлічі приватних історій з тої точки реальності, де ніхто нічого ще не знає і не розуміє, що зробив той чоловік біля померлого Лазаря і як йому це вдалося. Як усі це бачили, але не всі увірували відразу. Особливо, якщо це віра у перемогу із точки, в якій її ще нітрохи не видно. Так, про це напишуть у відповідному розділі української літератури початку 20-х. Основне не забути потім, що все це було зовсім не про літературу.
Bifurkatsioonipunkt. Lvivis käis sõja ajal, nii nad hiljem kirjutavad, võimas kirjanduselu. Ilmselt andsid nad midagi kogu kambaga välja, nagu modernismiaegne mõtusa, või kogunesid luuleõhtutel, sest mida luuletaja sõja ajal ikka teeb. Neid oli seal nii palju, sisemiselt segipaisatuid ja väliselt ebastabiilseid, nagu lühikest aega Esimese maailmasõja ajal ja teise ajal teel Euroopasse, enne kui raudne eesriie rebis moodsa maailma himura alasti keha elusalt lõhki. Kuigi tollal käis jutt Prahast ja Podebradist, Varssavist ja Münchenist, aga nüüd räägitakse Varssavist ja Lvivist, Tšernivtsist ja Užhorodist, Ivano-Frankivskist ja Ternopilist, kus neid oli nüüd nii palju, neid poeete, et tundus, et iga hetk võid komistada ühe või teise värssidele, õudusunenägudele, ajaloole, uudistele põrandal, kus sa jagad madratsit ühise laenatud lapiteki all, kui täpne metafoor inimeste kooselule sõja ajal. Kahju ainult, et nii kulunud perekonnale, mis on tükkideks ja poolik. Ja selgita siis kellelegi hiljem, et esimestel kuudel ristusid meie teed vaid juhuslikult mõneks asjalikuks minutiks, tihti tänaval, algul üksteist ära tundmata, jahmudes, justkui meenuks midagi lootusetult kadunut ja kättesaamatut, kallistades, et varjata peale tükkivaid pisaraid. Kuidas läheb? Kuidas läheb? Ei sõnagi kirjandusest. Pea vastu. Pea vastu. Vaikselt ja keskendunult nagu esimesed kristlased, kes nägid Kristuse imesid oma silmaga, ega teadnud veel, kuidas neid mõista ja kuidas neist teistele rääkida, et neid usutaks ja välja ei naerdaks, kuidas asju mitte väänata ega segi ajada, sest kunagi pole selge, mis detailid on kõige tähtsamad ja mille võib tähelepanuta jätta. Igast loost heitsime hiljem kõrvale selle, mis meie endiga juhtus, nagu apostlid maailma eri paigus, jutlustades oma versiooni evangeeliumist, sest iga usk toetub miljonile üksikule tunnistusele, arvututele isiklikele lugudele, sellest tegelikkuse punktist, kus keegi veel midagi ei tea ega mõista, mida tegi too mees surnud Laatsaruse kõrval ja kuidas see tal õnnestus, kuidas kõik seda nägid, aga mitte kõik ei jäänud kohe uskuma. Eriti kui usk võitu lähtub punktist, kust võitu veel sugugi näha pole. Nii hakkavad nad seda kirjeldama varastel 30-ndatel Ukraina kirjanduse vastavais peatükkides. Põhiline on mitte unustada, et kõik see ei puutunud üldse kirjandusse. And now about the next poems, I wanted to ask you whether there are any people who would understand Ukrainian. Is it okay to continue like this, that Halõna first reads the original poem and I will read then my translation? Yes? Okay. So we will continue with the Historia Ljudstva, the history of mankind, Inimkonna, ajalugu.
Maybe we'll try in the opposite direction.
Oh, okay.
First
So I'll
me.
read the Estonian one first then. Inimkonna ajalugu. Et vältida kellegi teise sõda, enne kui saabub sinu oma. Joonista inimeste rinnale vanad head märklauad. Veel kunagi pole me sattunud maailma lõpule nii lähedale, hoides üksteisel käest. Kunagi pole me kiiganud üle ääre nii suvaliselt, uudishimulikult. Kui sügav see on? Kui kaugel? Kas esimesed kukkujad teevad järgmistele matsu pehmemaks? Ikka veel jõuab hämariku maailma kohale valgus, ammu kustunud tähtedelt. Jääb sinna nii tasakaalukalt pidama, nagu midagi poleks juhtunud. Nii teravalt murravad valgust vesi, silmad ja muud, nüüd läbistamatud pinnad. Nii meeleheitlikult peegeldab seda metall, justkui oleksid kõik panused tehtud ühele vereplekilisele maailmakaardile. Seda, mis käest läks, ei saa enam kunagi tagasi. Harju pimedusega, puhasta oma relvad, säästa laskemoona.
I was looking but not find.
Okay.
I find.
Okay.
Finally I find. Історія людства. Уникати чиєїсь війни, аж діждатись своєї. Малювати комусь на грудях, мішені перевіреної форми. Ще ніколи ми не підходили так близько до краю світу, тримаючись дружно за руки. Не зазирали за край так допитливо, такі безпечні, як там глибоко, чи перші пом'якшать падіння наступним. Світе передзахідний, до якого все ще доходить світло від далеких зірок, давно вже погаслих. Так рівномірно лягає, що ніби й нічого не сталося. Так гостро заламується у водах, очах та інших відтепер непроникних поверхнях. Так відчайдушно відбивається від металу, ніби все поставлене на закривавлену карту світу. Те, що відбилося від рук, більше не дається в руки. Звикати до темряви, чистити зброю, берегти naboi.
Mina ei ole see paljas Platoni tüvi. Mina ei ole see mürskudest sandistatud maja, mina ei ole see katkine värav, see sein, mürsk, mis on asfalti kinni kiilunud, plahvatamata. Mina olen see, kes plahvatas. Mina olen see, kes on läinud. Mina olen see, kelleta proovi nüüd elada, kasvada, kaitsta, juhtida, justkui kätt pidi tühja varrukat, mis on õmmeldud vihmalõngadest, nõelutud ja nõelutud.
Це не я, оббілований стовбур платана. Це не я, скалічений обстрілом дім. Це не я, ця посічена брама, стіна, цей застряглий в асфальті снаряд, що не вибухнув. Я той, що вибухнув. Я та, якої не стало. Я те, без чого тепер спробуй бути, рости, захищати, вести, як за руку, за порожній рукав, зашитий нитками дощу, аби нити і нити.
Inimsoojus. Valides soojusandurit või öönägemisseadet, scrollid sa hämmeldunult kõiki neid mudeleid, mis on tehtud loomade jälitamiseks ja kartlike lindude tabamiseks metsikus looduses ja siis õuduses ka neid, mis on mõeldud jahiks. Sest ükski metsloom ega lind pole seda ära teeninud. Ei põder, ei surnud jänesekarkass, ei hirve õrn keha, mis vilksatab termoandurist mööda, segaduses ja ähmis, kuhu põgeneda, kes seal on mu õiguspärases kohas. Koera kuum keha paistab punasem kui inimese oma. Kui tihti andis ta sulle kaevikuis sooja, peites end su all möörgavate rakettide eest. Suslikud kärbid, mutid on nii tillukesed ja silmad orkamatud. Nemad ei loe. Sihtides pead arvestama, inimsoojus on eriline. See võib tappa.
I need to explain a little bit about this poem. At the first months, after the starting of full-scale invasion, we, as you know maybe, Ukraine didn't have a big army, a big well-prepared army, yes? And we all, many of Ukrainians started to help for army with equipment, with some technical, I don't know, some thermovisors, some other things very necessary in the wartime. And it's real, it was my real situation with this sensor, night visors, noctivisors, and other technique. I need to explore for myself all these kinds before buying, before finding, and before sending to frontline. And all translators who worked with this poem need to do the same, for them to learn this technique for translating too. Людське тепло. Вибираючи тепловізор чи прилад нічного бачення, зачудовано прогортаєш усі ті моделі, що призначені для спостережень за звіриною і полохливими пташками в дикій природі. А потім із нерозумінням ті, що призначені для полювання, бо ані звірина, ані пташка такого не заслуговують. Ні лось, ні заклякла тушка зайця, ні тендітне тіло косулі, що змигне в тепловізорі, розгублене і непевне. Куди тікати? Хто тут на моєму звичному місці? Гаряче тіло собаки, червоніше від людського. Скільки разів воно гріло тебе в окопі, забившись під тебе від нестерпного звуку прильотів. Ховрахи, ласиці, кроти, надто дрібні і непримітні, їх не беруть в розрахунок. Вибираючи приціл, мусиш пам'ятати, що людське тепло особливе. Воно убиває.
Okay, and now the last poem for this session. Sõidan tagasi bussiga, mis on täis vaikseid lapsi, vaikivaid emasid, kaasas talveriiete kompsud kaugetest maadest, kus nad olid kaitstud, aga õnnetud, kurvad, pilk pööratud tagasi, kus nad ootasid iga öö tagasi sõitu, igatsesid näha kedagi, ükskõik keda, kes ütleks neile, et nende linnad on veel alles, mitte väljamõeldud kodud, mida lapsed joonistasid päikese alla, sest kõik tunnevad päikest, aga kodu kaugeltki mitte kõik. Aga isa-ema mitte kõik. Nii kaua läheb, et õppida taas ära sõjaeelsed asjad, vanad oskused, kauem veel, kui jõuda koju eri maadest, kauemgi, kui unustada plahvatuste kõla, kellegi surmakarje, tühi veekanister, mida jagasid kõik selles keldris, kõik, kes sinna jäid. Poiss joonistab ilma jalata kassi ja inimesed, kes sealt kunagi välja ei tulnud, ja iseenese vaikides, punase vildikaga, punased karjed kõigile ja must matab need, kes välja ei tulnud. Buss viib meid koju läbi öö, mööda mälestustest maantee serval, mööda hirmust, et pole enam linna ega kodu.
And a short explanation. Every time when we write about something, now, we write about war. And it's very strange. In this situation, I remember we have very, very small signs of war in different fields of our life. Maybe as you know, we have not, in wartime, we have not a flight from Ukraine. We need to take a bus or train to nearest airport. And this way is near, it's near between 8 or 15 hours with waiting on the border. And once I was in bus during this 12 hours of way, and this bus was full of children, maybe 20 children, and maybe 30 children and 20 women. It was varied, and it was some strange things that I don't understand in first moment. All this bus was silent. Do you imagine the children between maybe between couple years, between toddler and maybe 10 years old, silent for 12 hours? And I was very surprised. I asked, and the answer was that these women and children from the territory, they was unoccupied territory, and they sat and they sat in basement for a couple weeks. And it was so strong image of war for me. It was very, I think that we have a lot of such strong images from life. We don't need to invent images. We have it in reality. Повертаюсь в автобусі тихих дітей, мовчазних матерів, серед клунків зимового одягу із далеких країв, де були нещасливими, але в безпеці, сумними з очима назад, де щоночі чекали на транспорт до станцій своїх і нестерпно хотіли зустріти когось, хоч одного когось, хто потвердить, що їхні міста існували, що все це не вигадка, дім, намальований дітьми, під сонцем. Бо сонце ж уміють усі, але дім вже далеко не всі, але тата чи маму не всі. Довго вчитись речей довоєнних, умінь попередніх, ще довше, ніж повертатись додому із різних країн, ще довше, ніж забувати звук вибухів, чийсь крик передсмертний, порожню баклажку на воду для всіх, що у тому підвалі були, що у тому підвалі лишились. Хлопчик малює кота без ноги, і людей, що не вийшли, і себе мовчазного малює червоним фломастером. Червоне кричить за усіх, а чорне усіх, що не вийшли, ховає. Автобус везе нас додому крізь ніч, попри пам'ять узбіч, попри страх, що ні міста, ні дому немає.
Okay, thank you, Halõna. It's difficult to start our conversation after such traumatic poems, but as we are at the Futurological Congress, I will ask my first question about the future that is like in a Mad Max movie, and the really dystopic future, which is also the present moment in Ukraine to a great extent. You once told me that you are a good shooter, a good sniper, that you took shooting practice as a young girl. So have you recently held a gun in your hands? Have you checked your shooting skills again?
No. It's a big difference to imagine war without war and to be in wartime, in real war. It's a big difference because as a young girl, I was how it say, I don't know how it say in English. I go to radio sport. I don't know how it say in English.
Radistic.
Yeah. And one of this program was shooting, and I was a good shooter in that time. It was more than 30. It's 35 years ago. It was, but after the beginning of war in 2014, I was not a couple times, but more times on front line, not far from the front line, as a writer and as a volunteer. And I saw the reality of war. And I understood in that time that my chance to be only a shooter is very, very less, because in war you need to be in good condition for still alive. You need to be to have a lot of other different skills for stay alive longer and to be useful for army, for your units. And I understood then in this situation I can be useful, I could be useful in another way. And just before the full-scale invasion, A couple times I went to medical training, and it was my way to prepare ring to full-scale invasion. And now I understand that I can be useful as a worker with words. It's a different way, because all field of all stages of war needs minds, needs a hands, needs a people who can work with it. And this reality is very, very complicated. It's not, there are not easy answer for this question.
Sure, of course. And what concerns being useful? Lately you have been useful to your country by traveling a lot and explaining the situation in Ukraine abroad. I must say that I'm not very good at anger management, and I have been on the verge of losing my temper and shouting while discussing the war on the Ukrainian territory with some German so-called experts of Eastern Europe, or with a Danish communist. What are the attitudes or opinions that annoy you the most? What offends you the most? Is it the ignorance about Ukrainian identity and culture, or is it some kind of toothless pacifism? What is it that really makes you angry, makes you feel that, oh, okay, now I'm about to punch this person?
In different countries, we had a different situation with knowing and understanding Ukraine. For a long, long time, we were in very deep shadow of Russia, and many people in different countries sometimes asked me a very strange question. For example, and this country was for last couple years was near 40. It was very, very busy time for all of Ukrainian writers, not only for me. And I remember in Spain was a question, war gives Ukrainian culture the chance to be, to exist, to be visible. War never gives a chance. War take all lives, people's possibilities, normal life, normal all chances. I prefer to write about other things. Just before the full-scale invasion, I had a program about futuristic essays of Stanislav Lem, because Stanislav Lem is from Lviv, my native city, and we had maybe 7 years ago, maybe more, a festival, Lem Festival, and I translated a book of Stanislav Lem, The Mystery of Chinese Room, the book of essays. It's very interesting topic. For me, it's more interesting than war. Many topics, it's more interesting. In other situation, I was very afraid that some people say this. I am not against the pacifism, but in the time of war, it's a big difference who say there's no war. If the side, if aggressors say no war, it's the way for the aggressor to stop this war, to stop this aggression, but not for us. Because for us, the slogan "No War" means that we stop the fighting, and we stop the how it say in English? Sorry for my English.
No, don't worry.
Sometimes my English is absent. Захищати. To pretend. If we stop to pretend, we will not exist. And it's a big difference. Yes, protect ourselves. We will not exist in future. It's a big difference in this situation. In many countries, Russian narratives are so deep and invisible for the people in this country. It begins from the terms. It's not. I remember that for first months of full-scale invasion, we explained that it's not a Ukrainian crisis. It's a Russian war against Ukraine. Because in many countries, in many news, they use this Ukrainian crisis and Ukrainian crisis. It's not true. In many countries, the one big problem was about the situation that Ukrainian writers say no for common formats with Russian writers. It's not about that we are against the Russian culture totally, but now we don't need to be in this context. It's an illusion of some possibility to discuss something, to be about the war, to have agreement about the war. It's not a possibility for us.
Is it still like that you don't agree to share the stage even with the Russian dissidents?
Yeah, it's because for us it's very hard to research the situation. What these dissidents say couple years before, maybe she on the one photo with Putin a couple years ago, and maybe he said something against Ukraine or against Crimea or about occupation of Crimea a couple years ago in other situation. And it's not good for now us, especially if we would like to talk about Ukraine, to talk about our situation without this connection with our past Soviet and Russian colonial status.
Yeah, okay, but do you agree that the Ukrainian narrative is now more visible? It's a paradox, of course, and I can understand that none of the Ukrainian writers really enjoys this opportunity to travel and spread the word about the Ukraine and then its language and culture that have existed a long time before the full-scale invasion. It wasn't an invention of NATO or Europe or Western Europe. But still, even your colleague, Ostap Slavinsky, told me that although it's horrible to say so, the Ukrainians are more visible now. They have got their narrative of heroism that was at the very beginning of the war when he told me so.
As for me, this situation is not about, it's very, it's very loud term, heroism, but it's about It's
But it
about
was very strongly present during the first months of the war, I guess.
it's about the responsibility people, as a civil person, felt their responsibility for the Ukrainian future, and the 7 of 8 part of Ukrainian army in the first months of full-scale invasion consists from civil people. My husband now is on front line from the beginning of full-scale invasion, but he's a lawyer of
authors' rights.
And a nuclear physicist. He's not a soldier. He has 2 higher educations, not for fight as a soldier on front line. And many Ukrainian writers, journalists, engineers, IT workers, and many other professionals went to fight because it was only one possibility to stay to stay alive for our country.
Yeah, to give your country a future. You mentioned the future of Ukraine. So how do you imagine it? What would your ideal version of the Ukrainian future be? And what is your realistic view of it? Some other colleagues or friends in Ukraine have told me that they live one day at a time.
Yeah.
And how long is this period of future that you think about for you?
Sometimes it's very strange to explain the organizer of different events abroad. Then they say, oh, we planned that you visit us in 2 months, in 3 months, in other terms. For me, and for many of Ukrainians, this future perspective that we see every day is not so long as couple of months. And I plan because we need to have some plan especially for events abroad, but I am not sure because living in Ukraine now is a big lottery, because every time when we have these sirens, we don't know where it will be. It will be here or there, and sometimes people who not preserve themselves, who doesn't go to basement, to bomb shelters, suffered, was killed, and I don't know about my vision of future because I haven't very good. I am pessimist.
Yeah, I know
this.
about that.
I am
very skeptical.
Who is pessimist is well-informed optimist. Yes, I am, and I don't know.
Future
I hope, but I hope, and I do it. And as we say in Ukraine, God doesn't have any hands than ours.
Mm-hmm. Right. The word for future in Ukrainian, майбутнє, it's an interesting word. We can really say that українське майбутнє, наше майбутнє, because in so many aspects the future of Europe and the whole world depends on the outcome of the war in Ukraine. But could you explain the etymology of this word? Because I think for many people the first association would be like Maidan, but Maidan comes from Turkic languages. It's like Meydan in Turkish is the square. Maybutnye. Ukrainian comes
it's
from
not very clear
which
etymology,
roots?
but in one version is that it can to be, it have to be. Майбутнє is the future, it have to be. But
so it's like the Indo-European root, like in English, may.
maybe,
Maybe.
maybe,
Може
maybe, yeah, future it may be. Yeah,
something that might be there.
But in this situation, etymology is not very helpful.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your poetry. You say that you want to render your poetic language as transparent as possible. You want it to be like glass. And this is what has happened to your poetry after the events of Maidan, and then after the full-scale invasion. And you even said that it's almost journalistic, but to my to my eyes, it's completely different. I really wonder how you master this vivid imagery in the way of giving us unexpected images and still making it so clear that this experience is right there, it's palpable.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how it works exactly, but I sometimes, because I'm not only a writer, a poet, but a philologist, I tried to explain myself how it works. And I remember that before the war, I had in my each book was some chapter about the war. It was strange, but it was from my, maybe from my Baroque experience as a researcher, because
so
in
before
Baroque,
the war, before Maidan already?
yeah,
Okay.
before Maidan, before in each of my book was the some poems about the war, and it was image of war. It was a literary. It was metaphor of war, as it means it exists in Baroque literature, but not about real war. And when the full-scale invasion started, I remember many people start to share my poems about bomb shelter. That poem was in my book of 2013. It was about before Maidan, before war, and it was so realistic poem about bomb shelter without any experience, my experience of bomb shelters, that many people thought in first days that it's real quick poem about the situation, from the real situation. And I don't know how it works in literature, maybe some prophetic function of poetry, I don't know. But after the full-scale invasion, the first change of my in my poetry from the war reason was when I visited this front line in the 2014 and 15, because I was there as a writer, and I understood there that I cannot say something new about war and about the life and about the death for people who experienced it just now. And I started to read for them the poem about the family, about the normal life, about the usual things, about everything other than war. And in Ukrainian literature now, we have a lot of poetry about something else, not about the war. But if we write something about other sides of our life, it's about war too, as I say before. And what about this language, this clear language? After full-scale invasion, I realized that I can write only in this way, because I would like to write not about the language. It was not experiments in language, it's not my researching in a language, but it's my way to explain reality, to documenting reality by emotional way, by other instruments, as the news documenting reality. And sometimes literature, poetry can go deeper than news, than video, than other form of documenting and fixation of this reality, because in our literature we have different other exemplars for other epochs, for other wars, but we can understand it only after you experienced it.
So you would say there is a general change in the Ukrainian poetry during the
it's
last
very
10 years?
In wartime, poetry returned to very basement, how would say, as in computer, very base settings.
Okay.
Yes, and poetry start not only documenting but memorizing, commemorizing, healing, to help people to stay human, to stay with their humanity, because it's very hard time and we lose every day, we lose hope, we lose our faith in this future, in this possibility to go to the end of all these hard times.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
literature can do it.
So you are writing poetry of witness, and do you write it every day? How does your everyday life look like? If you're not traveling, and if there are no sirens, you're not in a shelter, then you wake up in Lviv, and what do you do then?
My everyday routine in Ukraine is usual as is in normal life, usually. But every time I remember about the war, because every moment I remember that my husband is on front line, and I am waiting. I am check my messengers for his message, because we cannot use mobile phone on front line. Then they don't use mobile phone, only Starlink and only internet connection, because the places with a lot of mobile points is the places for Russian shooting. It's a very, very concrete situation, yes. And
so you don't send him your poems?
I spread my
sometimes.
poems on, I share my poems on my Facebook account. I write in the situation that I cannot take a breath without poem. Mm-hmm. It's not my, I don't take it as a duty. For me, it's a medicine. It's a way to
kind of
I try
therapy.
to help myself by poem, and when I share this poem on my Facebook, many people read them, this poem, and sometimes write me something that, and sometimes translating into different languages, and it works very directly, very quick and very directly, and it's only one way for existing poetry in wartime for me. I think that the life of we live in time of war, we live in very intensive time. Every moment change us, and this moment changes very quickly, and we change very quickly. And literature is a way, especially in wartime, is a way to, as in computer, we have this option, save as. Different version of us. The literature save us as 10 days ago, the first week of war, the first months of war, and different other moments. And now when I read this poetry, sometimes I don't remember myself in this moment because I changed.
Okay, so it's it has a function of witnessing the events. It has the function of a therapy for you.
For many of us, not only for
and
me.
And also, of course,
especially
for your audience, maybe even for us here.
Yeah, for people on frontline, we have many writers, many journalists on frontline who fight as a soldier, who was killed, many of them, and we lost a lot of people of art from different areas, from different art writers.
Yeah, like
Victoria Melina, Maxim Kravtsov, Volodymyr.
I know who you mean.
I forgot. It's
Please
my problem.
Google somebody so we can have his name. But I know who.
Vakulenko, yes. Vakulenko. Volodymyr Vakulenko, it's very sad situation from the first months of war because he was tortured by Russian in Izum. He was in his native town, small town in the east part of Ukraine. And he didn't escape from this place because he had a son with some problem with health, and he was tortured and killed, and many of people on this temporary occupied territory had the same. We don't know all situation, about many people on occupied territory. It's also about the future, because this sad knowledge is before us, many of this sad knowledge, and the hardest way in this situation is not be killed, but hardest way is appeared in Russian captivity. The hardest way is for family to don't know nothing about disappeared people, to having the possibility to grave this lost person, and many very hard things. I don't know. I wrote before the full-scale invasion. I wrote not only poetry but prose. But now I cannot imagine how I can write prose not about the war. And for prose about the war, I haven't enough material, because it's very important to write about reality, not a fiction about war, but reality, because fiction, it will be in future. but now we need this direct narrative.
Yeah, you have told me that it has been very difficult for you to read fiction or to listen to
listen
some
music,
beautiful
to see
music. Yeah. But if we go now back several years into your past as a young poet, which poets have had the strongest impact on you? Who has influenced you the most among the Ukrainian writers or some foreign authors, maybe foreign poets?
For me, as for philologist and teacher who had different courses from different period of literature, it's hard question because I had in my reader experience, reading experience, I had a lot of poets, a lot of writers.
So no special love or some.
It's in different time. It was different person. It was different authors. I like very much short stories, and for me, the masters, the genius of short stories from different countries, from different literatures, were very important. Every time I remember Stefan Zweig, I remember for me was very important Ukrainian prose writer Vasil Stefanik. From the last, maybe very new authors of short stories, Claire Keegan is very interesting.
What about the Poles? You told me that as a kid you learned Polish by yourself from the Polish TV, and you have translated Szymborska and Miłosz.
It was my personal, this learning Polish was my personal way to escape from Soviet Union, Soviet reality, yes. We had in that time, I don't know about you, in that time.
We had the Finnish TV.
Yeah, we had the Polish TV in Lviv because it's very close to border, Ukrainian-Polish border. And I remember that Polish fairy tale was very important for me, and from this situation started my my translating activity from that time. And in my translator's experience was Wisława Szymborska as a writer, and I met her personally, and for me very important Czesław Miłosz, Zagajewski, I was a moderator of his reading in Lviv, one reading in Lviv. And what about the poets, not Polish, but important for me? I don't mention I forgot. It's my problem with name.
Yeah, on stage, it's
Fuga smrti. Fuga smrti.
Fuga
of death. Fuga of death.
Oh, okay, Celan, yeah.
Celan. Yeah. And Celan in this situation is very close. I understand many of his poems now, especially after the experience of war.
Yeah, I can imagine. I even wanted to mention him before because he, while we were talking about this glass-like language, then I would have said that it's like you have imagery and your colleagues as well, which is at least as captivating as that of Celan. But then, okay, the translations of Nobel-winning poets such as Mirosh and Szymborska. So do the Ukrainian writers discuss this the situation with the Nobel Prize? And Ukraine hasn't got one yet. I can imagine that right now they have other concerns that are much more burning. But still, I think there have been several Ukrainian authors, poets who would have merited it much more than, well, even the latest Nobel laureate to my taste. So how would you comment this?
We discussed this situation before the war. Now it's not a problem for us. We have other problems more important than this. A couple times Ukrainian literature, Ukrainian writers were very close to Nobel Prize, when nominated, and but Ivan Franko, who was really very, very famous and very important writer for classical Ukrainian literature, was dead in the year of nominee before. The other Ukrainian poet who was very close to this Nobel Prize was Vasil Stus. He was a poet dissident who was killed by Soviet system in the year there he was nominated to Nobel Prize. And for Soviet
that was
system,
in 1986.
86, yes. It was very close to the crash of Soviet Union, but system was very, very strong in that time and very cruel. And this nomination to Nobel Prize for Stus, some people said that maybe it was the reason of this situation. The system killed them quicker than it can be possible. And now I know that Nobel Prize is not only about the literature, it's about the all surrounding, all these effects of all new trends, all important messages of author. And for me, in Ukrainian literature, maybe the most, for me personally, we have different point of view, but for me, Oksana Zabushko maybe is the most
probable, or
most probable, most the closest than Nada for this image of.
Well, now we have at least one book by Zabushko, the fieldwork in Ukrainian sex.
But it's not he's the, how would say,
it's not the opus magnum.
She's an intellectualist, not only a writer, but this book is
it's a very good book.
Yes, it's a very important book for Ukrainian, for secularization and liberalization of Ukrainian literature after Soviet time. But Oksana Zabushko, it's not only this book, but many others from latest stage of Ukrainian history, Ukrainian literature, our Ukrainian struggle, and I don't know. Maybe it will be somebody unknown. It's possible.
Yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed for Oksana Zabushko.
But I don't know. Maybe she not yet nominated for any time.
I know that there have been bets about Yuri Andrukhovich, but probably also about Zabushko. Well, let's give the audience now the chance to ask some questions. Certainly, there will be some. Okay, yeah.
Thanks, first of all, for your conversation and so important speech and questions about the situation and the literature situation in Ukraine, not only war, but how it the influence on everyone in Ukraine and out Ukraine. So it's really close to me, and thanks for that. And I have one question to Halõna. I'm just curious. You are living in Ukraine, but you now have a lot of work in literature, traveling all over the world. And how do you feel outside of Ukraine? Do you feel yourself in a safe out of Ukraine, or you feel better there, even in wartime? How it's for you?
It's a good question, because it's very strange, but I feel myself better inside Ukraine. Because abroad, every time we need to explain many things. And sometimes, if you have very hard, it's not about me, because I haven't very hard experience, but for people who lost home, who lost relatives, who with many hard, raped, tortured, and other awful things. For that people, it's very hard to find a point from what they can explain the situation, because they on totally other side of reality. And it's very hard to find a language, to find this point, to find the other side for this bridge of explanation. But if you are inside Ukraine, you have this collective experience, and you don't, it's not necessary to explain for people, because many people feel the same, and it's not necessary to, you can be in depression and nobody asks you why. You have some strange reaction and nobody say you why, or you need to explain what do you feeling in this situation. Do you feel in this situation? For me, sometimes it's easier inside, but we need to explain. We need to talk. We need to show the situation in Ukraine, because without it, it's a big problem for us, as for all people who were in colonial status, that their position and their situation were described by other people, by the people who speak louder, who can more ways to speak from their side of reality. And it's only one way to be visible and to be heard.
I wanted to ask whether there are different stages or degrees of feeling at home. I would very much like to hope that you feel more at home in Estonia than in some other countries, because you really don't have to do that much explanation work here, or in Lithuania. And Poland,
it's a different situation when in Baltic countries it's not necessary to explain many things than in other countries, because many people had the same historical experience and understand the situation as well as we, and take the situation from the right side. But abroad, it's not the usual situation for people abroad. And I would like to explain how it works. It's a problem of what about the safety. War give you all time, you have in the situation that your body analyze the reality around you from the point of your safety. And how it work. I was, a couple months ago, I was in Switzerland, and I had very big studio as a writer on residence. I had very big studio. And in one day, in the first days, I understood that I cannot control the space. I felt myself not safely because the space is too big and I cannot control it. Here, I hear all these sounds that are similar as the beginning of sirens. The starting of car motors, the other sounds is very beginning with the similar signs and sounds, and I hear and I'm waiting for the sirens. It's inside. And I remember then, after the first months of full-scale invasion, when I went abroad, I saw on all building with only one question, not with a question about architecture and other things, with only one question. Has this building a basement? Has this building a bomb shelter? It's not, it's usual for many people who stay for a couple months or couple years in Ukraine in time of war. It's not on the on very visible level of people, but inside it is.
Your colleague Julia Musakowska also told me about another aspect of feeling better in Ukraine. She said that it's better to be in the middle of things, in the middle of events. That when she spent a couple of months abroad at the very beginning of the war, then she felt so out of touch, and she was like suffering more. She was in anguish because she didn't know what was going on in Ukraine. Although being in Lviv, you probably cannot help much those people who are in Mariupol or who are in Avdiivka, but still you feel that closer, physically closer to them.
Yeah, we have inside Ukraine, we have different level of this feeling of safety, because in Lviv, we are not in the same situation that in Kharkiv, because Kharkiv or Odessa are shooted by ballistic, and the sirens is later than the shooting. It's awful things because the people haven't a possibility to hidden.
Any other questions?
I have a question to Publica. How many from us can read and understand Ukraine language?
Yeah.
Okay. Just maybe some more questions from the audience? Yes.
First, thank you for sharing this very difficult experience with us, and thank you very much. I was wondering, I write too, but I am in a country where I don't have this very difficult reality of war. And listening to you, I was wondering, I don't know how to put this question very precisely, but do you feel that you have lost illusion regarding literature, being in this situation of war, regarding, for example, the links between literature and politics? You talked about the difficulty of thinking about pacifism when you're in a war situation. So I guess as a writer also, it changes your view on the role of literature in a kind of way. I don't know if this is understandable, but yeah, sorry for my English also.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand.
I don't know, like your views about literature, illusions. Like if you feel disillusioned about like the...
Maybe you explain, because I don't understand.
Maybe
clear.
I could put it this way. How does the experience of writing in a war situation change your thoughts about the links between literature and politics?
Mm-hmm.
Adorno said that after Auschwitz it's not possible poetry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As for me, poetry, this phrase about Auschwitz was said by German language person who felt the responsibility of the war. In the wartime, for the person who suffer from the war, poetry, literature is only one way to stay alive sometimes, or only one way to say they are trust. And I remember that this literature about Jewish trauma of Holocaust started to appear not only in wartime, but after, not in wartime, but after, because in wartime, many of these people suffer, and it wasn't a possibility to write in that time. But we have the other times, but in the time of genocide, we now have these many examples of this genocide, and in such time we have only one way to attract attention to this situation, to write about it. And in this phrase, for me, the poetry and it's not important, this connection between poetry and politics. For me, literature, poetry, is the area for humans. Literature usually are writing for for people. And in the time where people suffered from something, the most honest way for literature to be inside the situation, to write from this situation, to pay attention to this situation, to give the voice for the people who cannot say personally because they were killed, they were tortured, they were raped, and sometimes they, not sometimes, always in time of war, we give the voice of this, the words for these people.
Yeah.
Not only many my poems, it's not only about my personal experience, but it's through my personality. Sometimes I talk the other people's stories, but through my feeling, through my subjective view. And for me, literature in time of war, it's a very strange question. We talked about it before, that now Ukrainian poetry have many new voices, especially from people from frontline, people who fight. And sometimes these people, it's a big illusion that the person on the war lose the humanity. Sometimes the person who has this experience is very wounded by this war. It's very for many of them the human life is the most important things in the reality. The main how would say, the biggest pacifist I saw on frontline. It's a very strange thing, but it's the reality. And the people who never experience the war, sometimes it's the most, how would say,
Aggressive or?
the most aggressive in many topics. It works in opposite way than we usually saw this before. And now I have a feeling that many people use the poetry in very basical, in its very basical functions. For example, I have in this situation I use the metaphor of abnormal growing. When you cut in the tree many branches, very important branches, the tree start to grow in different small branches, a lot of small branches, and it's not very normal situation. The tree after a couple years will die, but it's the way of this tree to stay alive. And with literature, in the time of war, we have the same. Many people start to write for stay in different way in this reality, for save this view, for save their experience. But sometimes many of these people now are not alive. Many of them, as Victoria, as Maxim Krivtsov, as Volodymyr. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the answer of your question, because it's very often it's a thing that irritates me usually, especially in the Western countries, because they said, "Oh, what topic is about politics?" they don't imagine that war, if it's war in your country, it's not about politics, because it's about stay alive. It's about, for many people, it's about their everyday reality. It's not about politics. Because these people, if these people start to say, I am no war, I am against war, these people not be stay alive, that will be killed in this situation.
It of course depends also how you define politics. This could also be a very political matter, the human life itself, and it's obvious that poetry also has this function of keeping people alive, and you are writing in order to stay alive. But we here are really happy that by way of a miracle, you are writing so good poetry as a means of staying alive, so that we here who are not fighting in the war can just enjoy what you have written, although it's not always an easy reading. It's hardly an easy reading at any time, but still I hope you can forgive us for getting some aesthetic pleasure out of what you have been writing in order to stay alive. So thank you so much, Halõna, for sharing your experience with us. And if there are no more questions from the audience, then
yeah.
Still there are.
Sorry.
Okay. I wanted to ask which Ukrainian poets you would think we should translate into Estonian in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
New voices, or somebody who hasn't gained much as much attention as they should.
Mm-hmm. We have very, very strong voices of fighting poets.
Polzhaka, for example?
Polzhaka is a professional
Professional
poet. Professional poet, but I mean the poet from their first books, their first poems. In this situation, I would like to mention Artur Dronj, very young, 23 years old poet, and the poet I mentioned before, Maxim Kravtsov, who was killed a couple of months ago, and now is his first book of poetry, but first and last. Yeah. Victoria Melina, who started to write poetry in the wartime after full-scale invasion, because before that Victoria wrote prose, not poetry. Many, many new voices, and for me, it's a big phenomenon of this very different, very unusual poetry from point of view from the poet who see the poetry in this very, very awful reality. It's not a poetization of war. It's not about the aesthetical view of very ugly events, but very ugly reality. But it's a way to catch many, many important things from this reality in such a way that poetry can do it. Yeah.
Well, now I think we have run out of time, maybe. We are already
Maybe-
in the future,
it's enough.
not in the time that was given to us. So, дякуємо дуже і слава Україні!
Героям
Yeah.
слава.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you for Maarja for our two meeting in to interview in Ukraine in the first months of full-scale invasion and later. And I would like to say thank you for your attention, for your support, and for your questions. And I hope that together we, maybe not very close but far, but more distant, but we will go to peaceful future, to future without for Ukraine to time for to better time for Ukraine.
Yes.
I afraid to use the word victory because for me this word as a word heroism is more pathetic than reality allow us.
Oh, but still, sometimes we can afford us some little pathos as well. So thank you again. And
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.